Why is it that someone making $50,000 a year thinks buying a lottery ticket is their ticket out, while some millionaire is crying because his neighbor's Ferrari has better rims? Think about that. You'll scroll TikTok for hours watching strangers flex lifestyles you'll never touch, yet you won't even spend 15 minutes understanding the thing that rules 99% of your life: money. And that's why you're broke. Not because the system is unfair, not because you don't make enough, but because your relationship with money is just as toxic as your relationship with your ex. And unless you fix it, you'll keep living paycheck to paycheck, wondering why your life never changes. Today, we're diving into The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, a book that's about to slap you across the face with a reality check. And trust me, you need it. Now, who is Morgan Housel? He's not some Wall Street wolf screaming at you to buy Tesla options. He's a former columnist at The Motley Fool and The Wall Street Journal, who spent years watching people win, lose, and absolutely destroy themselves with money. He's lived through the 2008 financial crisis, seen the smartest people in the room blow themselves up, and figured out the uncomfortable truth. Doing well with money isn't about how smart you are. It's about how you behave. And behavior is messy, and before the YouTube police start crying, this video falls under the Fair Use Act. This isn't a replacement for the book. It's educational, it's transformative, and it's about ripping the glossy cover off money myths to expose what really matters. You want the full story? Buy the book. Seriously, support the author. But here's where we're different. I'm not here to hold your hand. I'm here to confront you, to call out the lies you tell yourself, and to expose the clown show that is your financial life. Because Morgan Housel doesn't just talk about money, he talks about you. Your greed, your envy, your stupidity, your blind spots. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. That means you need this. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. The greatest illusion. You think you understand money, right? You don't. You think it's math, equations, and spreadsheets, but that's the biggest illusion of all. If money was just math, then every finance major would be rich, every MBA would retire early, and every Wall Street quant would be untouchable. But that's not what happens. Instead, the janitor with a beat-up truck dies with millions in the bank, while the Harvard-educated banker loses everything in foreclosure. You know why? Because money isn't math. It's human behavior put on full display. And behavior, unlike math, doesn't care how smart you are. Take Ronald Read, a janitor who quietly swept floors, pumped gas, and stacked cash into boring blue chip stocks for decades. He didn't buy Lambos, didn't flex on Instagram, didn't even bother with the get-rich-quick hype. When he died, he left behind over $8 million. Now put him next to Richard Foscone, a financial rock star with the credentials you'd kill for. A Harvard MBA, Wall Street power, mansions with pools on pools, and debt stacked so high it made Jenga look stable. When the 2008 crisis hit, Foscone went broke. Two men, same world, opposite outcomes. And here's the punch in the gut. The difference wasn't intelligence, education, or hustle. It was behavior. But most of you still think money works like a vending machine. Input intelligence, output wealth. Wrong. Money is messy. It's emotions, ego, and experiences stitched together into decisions that only make sense to you in the moment. You buy lottery tickets not because you're stupid, but because for 5 minutes you want to dream of escaping the grind. You max out your credit card not because you didn't know interest compounds, but because you told yourself, I deserve this. And then you call it bad luck when reality slaps you. Luck and risk, they're the twin gods of finance, and you worship both without realizing it. Bill Gates went to one of the only high schools in America with a computer in 1968. That's not hustle, that's luck. He still had to work like hell, sure, but luck handed him a lottery ticket. His best friend, Kent Evans, just as smart, just as ambitious, died in a mountaineering accident before graduating. That's risk. Same brains, same potential. One becomes a billionaire, the other a memory. If you're going to credit Gates's fortune entirely to genius, you better also acknowledge the randomness that killed Kent. And if you're going to laugh at the broke guy who took a dumb risk, remember, if the coin flipped the other way, you'd call him a visionary. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your financial life is not as much about what you know as it is about when you were born, what you've lived through, and whether luck or risk decided to show up. The Great Depression branded a generation with permanent financial fear. Meanwhile, kids who grew up during the 1990s tech boom thought the stock market was an ATM. Two equally smart people, two completely different money mindsets, all because of timing, which means your so-called rational decisions are really just history lessons written in your DNA. And that's why you're not crazy, even when you're financially reckless. If you grew up broke, your idea of risk is different than someone who always had a safety net. If your parents lost everything in inflation, you'll fear it for life. If you never lived through a crash, you'll think stocks only go up. Everyone is operating with their own version of reality, and that's the greatest illusion of money. You're not rational, you're not crazy, you're just a human being trying to navigate a chaotic system with a brain wired for survival, not spreadsheets. The tragedy? We don't give luck and risk the respect they deserve. We worship billionaires like they cracked some secret code, when in reality, many of them just happen to be standing in the right place at the right time. We demonize failures as if they were idiots, when sometimes they just rolled the dice and landed on the wrong side. The world is complex, outcomes are messy, and success or failure is never as clear as the motivational posters make it out to be. But your ego hates that. So you invent simple stories. He's rich because he's smart. I'm broke because I'm unlucky. Wrong again. Success is never as good as it looks, and failure is never as bad. The only constant is this. Money is not a math problem. It's a mirror showing you who you are when the stakes are real. Key takeaway. Wealth isn't about IQ, credentials, or formulas. It's about behavior, timing, and respecting the invisible role of luck and risk. Stop pretending money is a clean equation. It's a dirty mirror reflecting your fears, habits, and choices. Favorite quote: not all success is due to hard work, and not all poverty is due to laziness. Keep this in mind when judging people, including yourself. The hunger that never ends. Here's the dirty little secret no one wants to admit. You don't go broke because you didn't make enough. You go broke because you never stopped wanting more. That's the sickness nobody talks about. People fantasize about hitting a certain number, $100,000 salary, $1 million in the bank, the dream car in the driveway, and swear they'll finally feel satisfied when they get there. But the second they cross the finish line, the line moves. It always moves. Rajat Gupta had $100 million, sat on the board of Goldman Sachs, had more money than 99.999% of humans ever will. But was that enough? No. He wanted to sit with the billionaires. He risked it all for one more zero. He ended up in prison. Same story with Bernie Madoff. The man had a perfectly legitimate, successful business, making him tens of millions a year. But he wanted more. He wanted everything. And so he built the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. He had enough, but enough wasn't enough. This is why the richest word in finance is enough. But you hate that word, don't you? It sounds like settling. It sounds like mediocrity. You scroll Instagram, see someone younger than you posting from Dubai, and suddenly your perfectly good life feels like trash. You don't stop to think maybe they're drowning in debt, maybe they hate themselves, maybe the rented Lamborghini is going back tomorrow. No, you immediately move your own goalpost. That's why capitalism doesn't just generate wealth, it generates envy. And envy is the fuel that drives you off the cliff. But here's where the math you love to ignore comes in. Compounding. The most powerful force in money and the most misunderstood. Everyone's looking for hacks, crypto pumps, meme stocks, flipping houses, when the secret is painfully boring. Save, invest, wait. Warren Buffett didn't become Warren Buffett because he's the smartest investor alive. He became Warren Buffett because he started investing as a child and never stopped. Almost all his wealth came after age 50. In fact, if he had quit in his 60s, you wouldn't even know his name. Time, not brilliance, built his fortune. And yet you, yes you, can't hold onto a stock for 6 months without getting bored. You panic if your portfolio dips 10% and then wonder why you're not compounding wealth like Buffett. The problem isn't that you can't earn. The problem is you can't sit still. You want to get wealthy, but you don't know how to stay wealthy. Getting rich takes taking risks, betting big, sometimes even being reckless. Staying rich requires paranoia, humility, and a healthy fear of losing what you already have. The very traits that get you up the mountain aren't the traits that keep you from falling off the other side. And most of you never make that switch. You keep gambling, keep chasing, keep convincing yourself that one more hit won't kill you. Look at Jesse Livermore, the greatest trader of his time. In 1929, when the market collapsed and suicide swept through Wall Street, Livermore walked home and told his family they weren't ruined. He'd actually made the equivalent of billions shorting the crash. He was at the top of the world. But arrogance is poison. He kept pushing, kept risking, and ended up broke, alone, and dead by suicide a few years later. He knew how to make money. He didn't know how to keep it. And that's the lesson you refuse to learn. There is no number high enough to protect you from your own greed. You think you'd be happier with 10 times more, but happiness is just results minus expectations. Raise your expectations with every result, and you'll always feel broke, even with millions in the bank. That's why billionaires compare themselves to other billionaires and still feel poor. It's why you, making $70,000 a year, think you're failing because someone you went to high school with bought a Tesla. The game of comparison is the only game you can never win. The truth? The rookie baseball player making $500,000 a year feels broke next to Mike Trout. Trout feels broke next to hedge fund managers. The hedge fund managers feel broke next to Buffett. Buffett feels broke compared to Bezos. Bezos feels broke compared to no one. But give it time. There's always someone richer. There's always another zero. The only way to win is to quit playing. Key takeaway, wealth without the discipline to stop chasing more will always end in ruin. Compounding works only if you can sit still long enough to let time do its job. And enough is the only word that keeps you from losing what you've already won. Favorite quote, to make money they didn't have and didn't need, they risked what they did have and did need. And that's foolish. It is just plain foolish. Tales of fortune. Here's something you're not gonna like. Most of what you do in life doesn't matter. Your endless little hacks, your careful planning, your obsession with doing everything right, irrelevant. Because when you zoom out, you'll see that the future of your wealth, your career, even your life, gets rewritten by a few rare, extreme events. It's the tales, the outliers, that drive everything. Warren Buffett's entire career, boiled down, it isn't the thousands of trades he made. It's a handful of giant bets held long enough for compounding to do its work. The companies that shaped him, Coca-Cola, American Express, Apple, were the tails. One or two bad flips of the coin, and his entire story looks different. And that's the game you're in, whether you like it or not. You think your spreadsheet controls outcomes, but no, luck is in the driver's seat, and luck doesn't care about your formulas. One surprise, good or bad, will outweigh 10,000 responsible decisions. The market doesn't move in straight lines. History doesn't unfold neatly. Most progress is shockingly lopsided. A small number of breakthroughs move the entire world forward, while countless failures quietly disappear. Amazon made Jeff Bezos the richest man alive, but people forget that Amazon Web Services, the cloud business, wasn't even the original plan. It was a tail event that now drives the majority of Amazon's profits. Had that not hit, whole different legacy. But here's where you screw it up. You keep living as if life is predictable. You pile all your money into the hottest stock, or lock yourself into a career path, or load your calendar with commitments, thinking you've eliminated risk. You haven't. You've eliminated flexibility. And when the inevitable surprise comes, and it always comes, you're exposed. You don't need a crystal ball. You don't need to guess which coin flip lands on heads. You just need to give yourself room for error. That means cash reserves. That means margin for mistakes. That means not maxing out your lifestyle the second you get a raise. Because if everything has to go perfectly for your life to work, you've already lost. The irony? Everyone claims they love surprises when it means lottery winnings or stock windfalls, but the second it's a surprise on the downside, a crash, a layoff, a medical bill, you cry foul. You want the upside of uncertainty without the downside. That's not how the world works. Surprise is the default. Your grandparents didn't predict the Depression. Your parents didn't predict the 1970s inflation spiral. Wall Street didn't predict 2008. And you couldn't predict COVID if you had a time machine. If you're waiting for certainty before you act, you'll be waiting forever. So the smart move isn't predicting, it's preparing. It's acknowledging that the rare, extreme events, the tales, will dictate your life. And instead of pretending you can avoid them, you build your finances so you can survive them. That's why boring people who save money, live below their means, and don't overextend look like geniuses when storms hit. They're not smarter, they just left themselves room for error while you were chasing perfection. Here's the punchline. You will be surprised. You will be blindsided. And that's not a bug. It's the feature. If the future were predictable, there'd be no reward for risk, no growth, no innovation. The whole system runs on surprise. Stop whining about it and start respecting it. Key takeaway, most of life's outcomes are driven by a handful of rare extreme events. You don't need to predict them, you need to survive them. Room for error is the only real insurance policy in a world run by luck and surprise. Favorite quote, you don't need tremendous force to create tremendous results. You just need to survive the rare events long enough for the odds to eventually tilt in your favor. Freedom is the flex. You've been lied to about wealth your entire life. You think the guy in the shiny Lamborghini has it all figured out, that he's living the dream. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't actually admire him. You admire yourself in his position. You're not clapping for his life. You're daydreaming about how you'd look if it were you. The man in the car paradox is this. Nobody's impressed by the guy driving it. They're imagining themselves behind the wheel. So congratulations, the person you envy. They're not even on anyone else's radar, and that's why so many people get stuck in the endless flex game. You work insane hours, buy the expensive car, the designer clothes, the giant house you can't afford, thinking you're earning respect. But what you really bought was debt, anxiety, and the attention span of strangers who will forget about you in 5 seconds. Because wealth isn't what people see, it's what they don't see. It's the money sitting quietly in your account, the investments compounding without a selfie, the freedom to say no because you're not chained to bills stacked higher than your ego. Freedom, that's the real flex. The richest man isn't the one with the most toys, it's the one with the most control over his own time. That's why people making $500,000 a year with no free time are secretly miserable, while someone making $70,000 but owning their schedule can feel untouchable. You don't want money, you want the freedom money buys. But you've been conditioned to chase the symbols of wealth, not the substance. You've been brainwashed into thinking that respect comes from how much you spend, not how much you keep. And so you buy, convincing yourself you're winning, when really you're just digging your own grave with a black Amex. Think about it. The reason billionaires keep working isn't because they need more. It's because control is addictive. Having the power to say no to anyone, to bosses, clients, critics, that's the ultimate luxury. But you can't get there if every dollar you earn is already spoken for by the lifestyle you're trying to impress people with. The average millionaire isn't driving a Ferrari, they're driving a Toyota, quietly stacking wealth where nobody can see it. That's the paradox. True wealth hides, fake wealth screams. So let me confront you directly. Stop flexing for people who don't care. Your neighbors don't care about your car. Your co-workers don't care about your watch. Instagram followers don't care about your vacation. They're too busy imagining themselves in your place. If you want real power, stop trying to impress them and start building the invisible kind of wealth that lets you wake up when you want, work because you choose to, and walk away from anyone or anything that insults your time. Because in the end, money is just a tool. It doesn't love you back. It doesn't clap for you. It doesn't hug you when you're miserable. But it can buy you something more valuable than applause. It can buy you control. Control over your mornings, your career, your life. And if you're trading that away just to look rich, you're not wealthy. You're just a clown in an expensive suit. Key takeaway, Wealth isn't what you flaunt, it's what you keep hidden. The true measure of money is freedom, not possessions. If you're spending for respect, you're already broke. Favorite quote? The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. The hidden superpower. You want to know the most boring secret of wealth? It's saving. Not chasing stocks, not crypto moonshots, not flipping houses on some HGTV fantasy. Just the painfully unsexy act of living below your means and keeping more than you spend. And the reason most people will never be rich is because they're allergic to boring. You crave excitement, you want action, you want money to feel like a game you're winning, instead of the dull grind of stacking savings while everyone else is out flexing their credit cards. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. You don't need to be smart with money, you need to be consistent. Saving works not because you've cracked some secret code, but because it gives you optionality. Money saved isn't just dollars in a bank account, it's the ability to say no. No, I don't have to take that job I hate. No, I don't have to sell this stock at the bottom. No, I don't have to panic when life throws me a curveball. Every dollar you save buys you a tiny slice of freedom, and yet you blow it on shoes you'll wear twice because Instagram tricked you into thinking you need them. The world worships intelligence, but let me tell you, the graveyard of finance is filled with geniuses who thought they were too clever to just save. They chased rational when they should have settled for reasonable. Rational says, put every penny in the highest yielding asset and optimize like a robot. Reasonable says, keep some cash because life is uncertain, because you'll sleep better at night, because we're human, not calculators. Rational looks perfect on paper. Reasonable actually works in the real world. And the tragedy is, most of you ignore reasonable because it doesn't make you feel like a genius. But here's the kicker. Nothing is free. Every financial choice has a price tag, even if you can't see it. The cost of chasing high returns, stress, sleepless nights, maybe losing your shirt in the next crash. The cost of hoarding cash, lower returns in the long run, the cost of buying that status symbol car, years of your life working to pay it off. Nothing is free, but you pretend it is because admitting the price means admitting you've been paying it with your time, your freedom, your peace of mind. The hidden superpower is realizing that saving isn't about being cheap, it's about being powerful. You're not missing out when you skip the $10 latte or the third vacation this year. You're buying yourself resilience. You're buying the ability to survive the unexpected and capitalize on opportunity. Because when the storm comes, and it always does, the people who look like geniuses aren't the ones who predicted it. They're the ones who had money saved to get through it. So let me be blunt. If you're broke, stop blaming the economy. Stop blaming your boss. Stop blaming the government. You don't need a PhD in finance to get rich. You need discipline. And if you can't do the boring thing consistently, you don't deserve the freedom you keep fantasizing about. Key takeaway. Wealth doesn't come from intelligence, timing, or hacks. It comes from the boring discipline of saving and staying reasonable. Every dollar saved buys you freedom, and nothing in life is free. You're always paying a price, whether you admit it or not. Favorite quote. Personal savings and frugality, finances, conservation, and efficiency are more in your control and have a 100% chance of being as effective in the future as they are today. The mirage of certainty. Here's a fact you probably don't want to hear. The person you are today is not the person you'll be 10 years from now. That's not an insult, it's biology, psychology, reality. Think about it. Remember what you wanted at 18? Some of you swore you'd never have kids. Then you're 35, exhausted, changing diapers at 3 a.m., and suddenly that old version of you feels like a stranger. Or you once said, I'll never work a corporate job. Now you're grinding in a cubicle, selling pieces of your soul for health insurance. People change. You change. But when it comes to money, you act like your goals are fixed forever. And that's the biggest lie you tell yourself. You plan your financial life as if your future self is going to worship the same things you worship now. Spoiler, they won't. Your 20-year-old self wanted a fast car. Your 30-year-old self wants a house. Your 50-year-old self probably wants peace and quiet. but you make financial decisions as if time doesn't exist, as if your desires won't evolve. That's why so many people wake up one day with money locked in places they can't touch, debts they didn't need, or investments that made sense 5 years ago, but feel like shackles today. You didn't just miscalculate the market, you miscalculated yourself. And here's the uncomfortable part. It's easier to admit the stock market is unpredictable than to admit you are. At least blaming Wall Street makes you feel like a victim. Blaming yourself means admitting you've been living in a fantasy. You act as if certainty exists, like if you just research enough, plan hard enough, hustle long enough, you'll eliminate risk. Wrong. The risk isn't out there, it's in here. The risk is that the version of you who builds the plan isn't the version of you who has to live with it. And don't think this stops at money. We all want to believe we're rational, but humans are wired to believe whatever keeps them comfortable. When things are scary, you'll believe a guru who promises safety. When things are booming, you'll believe the hype that it'll never end. You don't actually want truth. You want reassurance, and that's why you fall for scams, why you trust get-rich-quick schemes, why you believe the economy will move in a straight line when it's never done that once in history. You don't want facts, you want certainty, and certainty is a drug. But here's the punchline. The smarter play isn't trying to predict, it's building flexibility into your life. Morgan Housel makes this clear. You're better off being adaptable than being right. Because what's the point of being right about the future if the future version of you doesn't even want the thing you spent years chasing? That's not success, that's a trap. The goal isn't precision, the goal is resilience. So let's be blunt, stop acting like you know yourself forever. You don't. Stop building financial castles around the whims of your current identity. You're going to outgrow yourself, and that's okay. The trick isn't to bet on what you want, it's to leave room for the stranger you're going to become. Key takeaway, the biggest risk in finance isn't the market, it's you. The future you is a stranger, and pretending you won't change is the fastest way to build a life you don't want. Stop chasing certainty, build flexibility. Favorite quote, long-term planning is harder than it seems because people's goals and desires change over time. The seduction of doom. Why is it that bad news spreads faster than good? Because you want it to. Be honest, when someone tells you the world's going to hell, you lean in. But when someone tells you things are actually getting better, you roll your eyes. Why? Because optimism sounds naive, but pessimism makes you feel smart. Saying it's all going to crash gives you an air of wisdom, even though history shows that anyone betting against progress has looked like an idiot in the long run. And yet, every single time, people still buy into the doomsayers. Think about it. In the 1970s, people swore inflation would crush America for good. In the 1980s, it was Japan taking over the world. In the 2000s, it was Y2K, then the housing crash, then automation stealing all the jobs. And today, it's AI, climate change, geopolitical collapse, you name it. And sure, some of those risks are real. But here's the thing, humans have an undefeated track record of solving problems. That doesn't mean it's painless, it doesn't mean it's pretty, but it does mean that betting on decline has always been a losing strategy over time. If you had listened to every pessimist screaming, "This is the end," you'd have missed out on every fortune, every breakthrough, every leap forward. The book makes a critical point here. Pessimism isn't just popular, it feels safer. People would rather avoid loss than chase gain, so they gravitate toward anyone promising to protect them from disaster. But what they miss is that this very instinct robs them of opportunity. You don't grow by running from shadows. You grow by planting seeds even when the world insists the soil is cursed. That's the paradox. Fear keeps you cautious, but caution alone never built wealth, progress, or resilience. Now let's get confrontational, because some of you live your entire lives addicted to doom. You follow fear-peddling news outlets, you share conspiracy theories, you worship the realist who says it's all rigged, and you convince yourself you're smart for it. No, you're not smart, you're scared, and worse, you're paralyzed. You want the moral high ground of being right about the world collapsing, but deep down, you don't actually want to be right. Nobody wants the world to end. You just want the ego boost of saying, "I told you so." Meanwhile, the optimists, the ones you mock, are out there building companies, investing, creating families, taking risks, and shaping the very world you complain about. Here's the ugly truth. Pessimism sells, but optimism pays. The market, the economy, humanity, they all stumble, crash, collapse, and then they get back up. That's the rhythm of history. And while the pessimists are busy writing angry blog posts about how society is doomed, the optimists are quietly compounding wealth and progress in the background. You can be cynical, but cynicism doesn't pay your bills, and it sure as hell doesn't buy your freedom. Morgan Housel ends with a personal confession. Even he doesn't have all the answers. That's not weakness, it's honesty. The whole point is that the game of money is messy, human, unpredictable. And maybe that's the greatest takeaway. Stop looking for certainty and pessimism. Stop pretending the world is collapsing every Tuesday, and start understanding that while risk is real, progress is stronger. Key takeaway. Bad news sounds smarter, but progress has the winning streak. Pessimism will make you feel clever, but optimism is what builds wealth, resilience, and history itself. Favorite quote. Pessimism just sounds smarter and more plausible than optimism, which is often viewed as being oblivious to risk. Shockproof finance. Here's a cold truth most people never want to admit. You're not losing because you didn't find the right stock, or the perfect investment strategy, or because you didn't read enough finance blogs. You're losing because you live as if the world owes you predictability. You want guarantees, you want certainty. And you know what? That's not how life works. That's not how money works. The world is a slot machine, and the lever is rigged with chaos. If you build a financial life that only works when everything goes right, you've already lost. Morgan Housel hammers this idea with examples straight from history. The surprises are what define markets, not the forecasts. Nobody saw the 2008 collapse playing out exactly how it did. Nobody predicted how quickly the internet would rewrite the rules of business. Nobody had COVID-19 penciled into their portfolio strategy. And yet, every single investor acts like tomorrow is going to look like today. You tell yourself you're being rational, but really, you're gambling on a fragile future that doesn't exist. Here's where it gets brutal, because this isn't just about finance, it's about life. Most people design their lives like a glass tower. Looks great on the outside, but one earthquake and the whole thing shatters. You buy the house that stretches your budget. You get the car that eats your paycheck. You load up on debt because you assume your job will always be there. And when the unexpected comes, and it will, you cry foul like the universe betrayed you. No, it didn't betray you. You betrayed yourself by not leaving room for error. The irony is that the very people who brag about their high risk tolerance are usually the ones who are one bad break away from disaster. True strength isn't risking it all, it's having enough buffer that when things go sideways, you bend but don't break. The people who survive financially aren't the ones with the sharpest predictions. They're the ones who understand that surprise is inevitable, and they build shock absorbers into their lives. Cash reserves, reasonable expenses, margin of safety. Call it boring, but boring is what keeps you in the game when everyone else is wiped out. Now let me really get in your face here. Most of you don't want wealth, you want drama. You want to feel like you're riding the roller coaster because stability feels too slow. You chase flashy gains, you mock the saver who builds quietly. You act like you're above, playing it safe. But when the storm hits, guess who survives? Not you, not the gambler. It's the boring, overlooked, steady operator who built their finances like a damn submarine. Doesn't matter how big the waves are when you're watertight. Housel makes it clear, nothing is free. Every reward in finance comes with a price, but it's not always printed on the tag. The price of wealth might be volatility. The price of freedom might be delayed gratification. The price of security might be spending years looking like you're falling behind while others flaunt their toys. If you can't stomach the price, you don't deserve the reward. And yet, most people tap out the second it gets uncomfortable. You want gains without pain, growth without patience, wealth without sacrifice. That's not investing, that's wishing. So here's the takeaway you're not gonna like. Stop trying to predict storms. Stop waiting for certainty. Start building a financial life that can take a punch. Not because you're pessimistic, but because you're realistic. Optimism is saying, the future will be good. Realism is adding, but it will be a bumpy ride, so I better wear a seatbelt. Every fortune that lasts is built on that mindset. Key takeaway: wealth that survives is wealth built with margin. The world doesn't reward the boldest forecast. It rewards the person who prepares for chaos and refuses to be destroyed by surprise. Favorite quote: you have to survive to succeed. The ability to stick around long enough without wiping out or being forced to give up is what makes the biggest difference. The compounding of life. Everyone thinks they're bad at math until compounding shows up. Then suddenly, they're not just bad at math, they're blind, deaf, and delusional. Because compounding doesn't feel like math at all, it feels like witchcraft. Let's be real. If you understood compounding, you'd never again be impressed by someone who got rich quick. You'd know they're just the financial version of a one-hit wonder. Compounding is what turns average, boring, ordinary into extraordinary. But here's the problem: your brain isn't built to see it. Morgan Housel makes it clear: compounding is powerful precisely because it's invisible in the short term. Warren Buffett didn't become Warren Buffett because he was a one-time genius investor. He became Warren Buffett because he started ridiculously young and never stopped. He's been playing the compounding game since he was basically a kid selling Coke bottles door to door. Most of his net worth came after his 60th birthday. Not because he suddenly got smarter in old age, but because time is the most ruthless cheat code in finance. But what do most people do? They quit. They can't stand the wait. They look at year 1, year 2, maybe year 5 and say, this isn't working. They want Netflix results from a savings account. They want Amazon Prime shipping for wealth. And when they don't see fireworks immediately, they jump ship and go chasing the next hot tip, the next crypto, the next meme stock. You know who you are. You can't even commit to a TV show without Googling the ending, so of course you can't commit to compounding. And here's the kicker: life itself works the same way. Compounding isn't just about money. It's about habits, about skills, about relationships. Every single person you admire didn't just wake up one day talented. They compounded tiny, boring, unimpressive steps for years while nobody was watching. The guitarist who melts faces on stage compounded hours in their bedroom, repeating the same scale until their fingers bled. The athlete you idolize compounded early mornings, injuries, and endless drills while you were hitting snooze. Compounding doesn't look impressive while it's happening. It looks boring. It looks invisible, until suddenly it doesn't. Housel also reminds us that the world isn't fair. A lot of success comes down to tails, the rare, unpredictable outlier events. The one deal that works out, the one career move that changes everything, the one idea that takes off. Most things you try won't matter, most won't move the needle at all, but the few that do will rewrite your entire future. And here's the brutal truth: you don't get those tails unless you survive long enough to let them happen, which means you've got to keep playing, even when it looks boring, especially when it looks boring. And let's not forget another uncomfortable truth Housel calls out: people will believe anything if it justifies what they want right now. You'll tell yourself compounding isn't worth it because you'd rather blow your money on instant gratification. You'll convince yourself someone else just got lucky because admitting they compounded longer than you means facing your own impatience. You'll create narratives to protect your ego while quietly robbing yourself of the one force in the universe that could have worked in your favor if you hadn't quit too soon. So here's the uncomfortable slap in the face: compounding rewards patience and punishes quitters. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make for good social media posts. It won't impress your friends in the short term. But in the long run, it will absolutely demolish every flashy get-rich-quick scheme out there. And the people who win aren't the smartest, or the most talented, or even the most disciplined. They're the ones who had the audacity to keep going long after everyone else got bored. Key takeaway: Compounding is the quiet superpower of wealth and life. It looks irrelevant today, unstoppable tomorrow, and like magic decades later, but only if you stick around long enough to let it work. Favorite quote: good investing isn't about earning the highest returns. It's about earning pretty good returns that you can stick with for the longest period of time. That's when compounding runs wild. Money is a mirror. You know what's funny? People think money changes them. They think the moment they cash that bonus check, win the lottery, or land that promotion, they're going to magically transform into this wise, disciplined, classy human being. No, money doesn't change you. It unmasks you. It's the loudspeaker for who you already are. If you're insecure when you're broke, you'll be insecure with 6 figures, just with nicer shoes. If you're reckless when you're making $30,000 a year, you'll be reckless at $300,000, just with faster ways to blow it. Housel points out that wealth isn't what you flaunt, it's what you hide. That guy revving his rented Lamborghini down your street, he's not rich, he's desperate. He's screaming, "Notice me," louder than a toddler in Target. Real wealth is invisible. It's sitting in an index fund, it's sitting in your savings account, it's sitting in the control you have over your life. But since you can't post a Vanguard statement on Instagram, people go for the cheap performance. The car, the watch, the vacation flex. And the sad part is nobody even looks. The whole man in the car paradox proves it. You see a guy in a Ferrari and you don't think, "Wow, that guy must be cool." You think, "Wow, if I had that Ferrari, people would think I'm cool." Nobody cares about the guy. They care about themselves. And let's be brutally honest. This is why so many people stay broke. They're busy buying symbols of wealth instead of building actual wealth. It's financial cosplay. You can rent the lifestyle, but you can't fake the freedom. Because the real flex isn't what you buy, it's what you refuse to buy. It's the discipline to let people underestimate you while you quietly stack assets in the background. That's why Housel says, wealth is what you don't see. It's the house you didn't upgrade to, the car you didn't finance, the gadgets you didn't impulse buy. The invisibility is the power. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable. The way you treat money is more about psychology than math. You're not making decisions based on logic. You're making them based on who you are, your upbringing, your fears, your ego, your need to prove yourself. If you grew up with nothing, maybe you hoard money like a dragon guarding gold. If you grew up spoiled, maybe you spend money like it's Monopoly cash. Money reveals those patterns. It reveals your insecurities, your priorities, your level of self-control. It's a mirror, and most people hate what's staring back at them. And if you want proof, look at lottery winners. Studies show the majority of them end up broke again. Why? Because the money didn't change them, it just amplified their habits. If you suck with a paycheck, you'll suck with a jackpot. And if you're disciplined with a paycheck, you'll thrive with a jackpot. It's never about the number, it's about the person holding it. So let me ask you, if tomorrow you woke up with 10 million in your account, would you have the character to keep it? Or would you torch it trying to look like someone who made it? Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You don't need to be rich to prove anything. You need to be rich to stop proving things. Until you get there, your money is basically a highlighter, circling your insecurities for everyone to see. Key takeaway. Money is less about your bank balance and more about your behavior. It doesn't change you, it amplifies you. Real wealth is invisible, and the loudest flex you can pull off is freedom, not stuff. Favorite quote: spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. The consumer story. You ever stop and think about why you buy the crap you buy? Spoiler alert, it's not because you need it. Half the stuff in your house was bought for one reason: to tell a story. Your parents' story, the story of the culture you were born into. Don't believe me? Then why does a wedding ring need to cost 3 months' salary? Why does a car have to be leased instead of owned? Why are sneakers with a swoosh worth $200 more than the same sneaker without one? You didn't wake up one morning and invent those rules. Someone before you wrote them, and you just inherited the script. That's what most people don't get about money. It's not neutral, it's narrative. Every dollar you spend is tied to a backstory. You're not buying objects, you're buying identities. And identities aren't created in your bank account, they're passed down like family heirlooms. The broke kid who grew up watching his parents drown in bills, he either becomes a financial minimalist or an overspender trying to prove he's escaped. The kid of immigrants, they might hoard savings, terrified of scarcity, while their own kids grow up mocking them for being cheap. We don't spend based on math, we spend based on memory. Morgan Housel makes it painfully clear. What you call personal finance is really cultural finance. You think you're making independent decisions, but you're just recycling lessons you didn't even know you inherited. That's why your friend is obsessed with crypto while your dad still thinks certificates of deposit are king. It's why some people gamble on startups while others cling to pensions. Same economy, same tools, but completely different playbooks because their histories aren't the same. And here's where it gets ugly. You love to judge other people's financial decisions, right? You look at the guy dropping $5,000 on rims and think, what an idiot. But he looks at you dropping $5,000 into an index fund and thinks, what a boring loser. Who's right? Neither. Both. Because money has never been about being right, it's about making choices that fit the story you believe in. And those stories, they're written by survival, they're written by trauma, they're written by watching your grandparents live through wars, or watching your parents lose everything in '08, or scrolling Twitter during every market crash and convincing yourself the world is ending. The dangerous part is we don't even know we're doing it. We act like our beliefs are logical when they're actually autobiographical. And that blindness is why you keep repeating the same dumb patterns, going broke in the same ways your parents did, chasing the same illusions your culture worships, and thinking you're different because your toys have Wi-Fi. You're not different. You're just the next chapter in the same recycled book. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The stories you tell yourself about money will either chain you down or set you free. If your story is money is evil, you'll sabotage yourself every time you start to build wealth. If your story is I need to spend to prove I'm successful, you'll die broke trying to impress people who don't care. If your story is saving is for losers, then congrats, you've just chosen future poverty as your personality. But if your story is that money is freedom, that money is leverage, that money is the ability to say no to things that waste your life, then suddenly every decision aligns. You save because freedom is sexy. You invest because patience compounds. You spend carefully because the best flex is invisibility. So yeah, you can keep pretending your spending habits are unique, but they're not. They're inherited. And until you rewrite the script, you'll just be playing your role in someone else's financial tragedy. Stop acting like you're free when you're just following a script you never questioned. Tear it up. Write a new one. That's the only way you actually win at this game. Key takeaway, you're not managing money, you're managing stories. Until you rewrite the narrative you inherited, your financial future isn't really yours. It's just a rerun. Favorite quote, behind every financial decision is a personal history, a set of experiences, and a narrative we cling to, whether or not it makes sense. Conclusion. So what's the point of all of this? After tearing through illusions, dismantling myths, and confronting the raw truth behind money, here's where we land. Wealth isn't math, it's psychology. Every spreadsheet you obsess over, every chart you worship, every perfect plan you map out, it all burns if you don't master your own behavior. You've seen it now. Luck and risk deciding fortunes, the hunger for enough destroying lives, tales of fortune rewriting entire histories, freedom being the only real flex, saving being the hidden superpower, certainty being an illusion, doom being seductive but hollow, resilience being the ultimate survival skill, compounding being the closest thing to magic, money being a mirror, and consumerism being nothing but inherited stories. Put all of it together, and the message is violent in its simplicity. Stop pretending this game is about numbers. It's about you, your fears, your insecurities, your patience, your discipline, your ability to walk away when the world screams more. The world will always try to sell you doom. Politicians will scream collapse. Influencers will flash cars. Wall Street will tempt you with quick wins, but history already answered. Optimism wins, patience wins, humility wins, survival wins. The people who last the longest don't have the highest IQ or the hottest stock tips. They have the courage to save when no one's watching, to resist when everyone's spending, to hold when everyone's panicking, and to stay humble when everyone else thinks they're gods. If you've been waiting for some secret, there isn't one. The whole book has been punching you in the face with the same truth over and over. Money is human, messy, emotional, insecure, short-sighted. And if you can see that, if you can rise above it, if you can master your own psychology instead of trying to master the market, then you don't just get rich, you stay rich. And more importantly, you stay free. Now, if you felt like this breakdown hit you, if it stripped away the myths and forced you to stare straight at the uncomfortable truths you've been avoiding, then don't just stop here. Go pick up Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money, read it, own it, mark it up, because this was just the highlights. We left out entire sections of nuance, entire stories that only hit when you see them word for word. If you're serious about changing your relationship with money, that's your next move. And let me be blunt, watching videos like this, listening to someone scream the truth at you, it's nice, it's motivating. But if you walk away and change nothing, then you've just wasted your time. Your future doesn't care what you know, it only cares what you do. So rewrite your script, build shock-proof finances, flex freedom instead of cars, save when no one's looking, play long-term games, rewrite your family story, and for the love of everything, decide what enough means for you before you end up another tragedy of endless wanting. Because at the end of the day, money doesn't care who you are, it just reflects who you've been. And if you don't like what you see in that reflection, then it's time to change it. So go get the book. Then get to work. If this breakdown slapped you across the face, then do yourself a favor. Don't just binge this and move on. Subscribe, share it, and let it burn into your brain every time you're tempted to blow cash on dumb flexes. And remember, money doesn't care about your excuses. It only cares about your behavior. So fix the behavior and you fix everything else.